Good afternoon. I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times on Wednesday, April the 6th. The Arkansas legislature began a three-day special legislative session this morning. It heard first from Governor Asa Hutchinson, who appealed to their higher instincts, quoted from the Bible, and talked about people in need and urging them to continue the private option expansion of Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, or so-called Obamacare. He wants to rename it Arkansas Works, add some amendments to it, but largely keep in place the system that has added 250,000 people to health insurance rolls in Arkansas. There's not going to be much eventful happening this week because he dropped a contentious issue from the agenda. I think the legislature will approve the outline of his amended form of the private option insurance plan. The big news will be next week when the regular fiscal or budget session of the legislature begins, and then they have to start passing appropriation bills. That generally is thought to require a 75% vote in Arkansas. All the indications are now that while he enjoys a broad majority support for his health insurance plan, there are enough people there to block it if the 75 vote rule holds. So the big news could be next week. For now, Asa Hutchinson says the feds seem to be looking kindly on some of his ideas about changing the program. Not so on others. It won't allow an asset test. It won't allow a work requirement, but it says it's okay if he requires people to be referred to job training programs. Also on the subject of Obamacare, it was interesting. Connor Eldredge, a Democrat who's running for U.S. Senate, issued a news release while Hutchinson was speaking this morning, reiterating that he believes the private option insurance plan has been good for Arkansas. He wants to see it continued. He's drawing a contrast with Senator John Boozman, his Republican opponent, the incumbent, who said, well, it would be terrible for people to lose their insurance, but he's ready to vote to kill Obamacare anyway. Pretty harsh words. The question is how many of those poor people vote, I suppose. Excuse me. And speaking of Senator Boozman, he didn't do well yesterday. He agreed under great pressure to meet with Merrick Garland, President Obama's nominee for a vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court. But he was so unhappy about it, he made sure nobody got a picture of him with Merrick Garland. Didn't want any of his cooties to rub off on an Obama nominee, I suppose. He said after the meeting it doesn't matter. He doesn't want to see him nominated. He thinks it's the next president's job to pick the next U.S. Supreme Court member. This, of course, is crazy. The American people elected Obama twice to make Supreme Court appointments, but John Boozman and Tom Cotton, to name two, think that the last year of a term he somehow loses his presidential powers. Interesting constitutional view from people who claim to be well versed in the U.S. Constitution. Elsewhere in the courts, a lawyer from Lunar Rock has filed a Freedom of Information Act suit against Stu Sofer, a member of the Jefferson County Election Commission. You may have read that he pulled a gun when he got to feeling threatened about another former member of the Election Commission in a dispute that seems to go on forever in Pine Bluff. Stu Sofer's a Republican who fancies himself a stickler for the law when it comes to elections. Not such a stickler for the FOI law. He has sent emails about Election Commission business. He claims he's not the custodian of those, though they were on his on one public and perhaps one private account. He can get his emails and he can provide them. The law says that he should. The Lunar Rock City Board of Directors last night voted 8-2 to let Lamar Advertising switch some billboards on the Mills Freeway, a pretty dangerous roadway, into distracting digital signs. They say, well, hey, we got some digital signs in the city already, so why not some more? One other concern about this is that Don Ray claims that in return for getting as many as 4 digital billboards on high traffic roadways, it's going to remove perhaps a dozen billboards from the city. They, for some reason, won't identify those locations, haven't proved that they're being used, or whether they're just simply permits that have expired and they're not using anyway. City Director Ken Richardson told me this morning that he's going to be sure that there is accountability. He ended up voting for that ordinance, but wants to be sure the billboard company's held accountable, he says. Interesting meeting last night in the River Market on some ideas bubbling up from the Arkansas Highway Department. Don't call them the Transportation Department. All they do is build highways. About ways to reconfigure the widening of Interstate 30 through downtown Little Rock. I'd say some bowls of concrete spaghetti were on display last night. I'd urge you to take a look at Leslie Peacock's story on the Arkansas blog about the details that were given there. Attorney General Leslie Rutledge made national headlines yesterday. She went on an NPR station in Boston and defended over and over and over again her defense of the indefensible. That is, she says that, of course, it's wrong for Fayetteville to pass an ordinance that allows that provides non-discrimination against gay people. State law just won't allow that. She believes that we should have legal discrimination against gays for those people who feel like they should. Now, she says she'd hate to see anybody discriminated against, but our law allows that right now, and she's defending it. indefensible from my point of view. And finally, news from our friends of the South in Baton Rouge. The LSU campus is starting to talk seriously about adopting some rules to limit binge drinking at LSU tailgate parties at football games. This has been met with very unhappy reactions from students at LSU, as you might imagine. No more beer bongs and that sorts of thing at football games. I guess I'm getting old. I think maybe a little bit less binge drinking would be not a bad thing. Of course, we don't have to worry about that in Arkansas because public drinking is not allowed in Little Rock and Fayetteville, and so I don't guess anybody drinks anything but Coke at football games, except in the skyboxes, of course. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.
You feel it in your heart. The spirit of Little Rock. We've had that spirit since 1927, helping build our city by producing decades of leaders in the heart of our state. We are the heart of business and innovation, the heart of politics and government, the heart of arts and culture, and in our city beats the heart of a Trojan. UALR. We are Little Rock's team and Little Rock's University.